Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my French stepmother learns the hard way that Americans can cook. This happened today, and my brother and I are still laughing about it, except Gabrielle, my stepmother, and Dad, who's embarrassed. Dad came into town to visit my brother, let's call him Mark, and me for a few days, and he brought Gabrielle with him. Gabrielle has her good traits, but she does have this one really nasty trait. She is notoriously picky and critical when it comes to food. You know the stereotypical snooty and rude French character in movies and books who always complains, "That is not how it's done in France." That's how she is when it comes to food. Going out to eat with her is embarrassing. She constantly sends back food, is insistent on food being made a certain way, and always demands certain things be done a certain way. One time, she asked the waiter to bring some mustard to the table. Not 2 minutes later, she called him back because, "The mustard is old. Bring us a new unopened bottle." More than once, I've had to apologize to the waitstaff on my family's behalf, and I told the manager that I will vouch for them should Gabrielle leave a bad review on their site. She's made waiters and managers cry. She's that bad. Honestly, I have no idea why my dad puts up with her when she does that, even though I know he's just as embarrassed as Mark and I are. We can only chalk it up to Gabrielle having some magical traits about her, if you know what I mean. When they got here yesterday, for some reason, they insisted they wanted to go out to dinner. Dad recommended our new favorite diner, which is known for its breakfasts at any time of the day. We live close to a major interstate, and the saying about truckers knowing all the best diners and hole-in-the-wall places is true. It's a greasy spoon in every sense of the word. Right out of the 50s, every leather booth filled with truckers or locals, waitresses who automatically know their regulars' order by heart and they don't put up with crap from anyone. A bustling kitchen, and while spotless, it's just worn enough to let you know that many people have been there. In other words, it has character. It may not look like a 5-star restaurant. It has some of the best breakfasts you're ever going to eat. I was hesitant to take Gabrielle there, if only because I didn't want to ruin the staff's day. Mark and I have been there enough times that the waitstaff and cooks know us. However, Dad wanted Gabrielle to experience a true American classic and was offering to pay, so off we reluctantly went. Luckily, we got there when it wasn't too busy, so I told Dad to find a parking spot and I would go in and get us a table. The reason I did this was so I could warn the staff about Gabrielle and apologize in advance for anything she did. Fortunately, our usual waitress, let's call her Mary, thanked me for the warning and warned the rest of the staff. We go in, get our booth, and Gabrielle starts trying to pull her usual stunts. I won't go into everything she did because we'd be here forever, but I'll leave a highlight reel. 1. Gabrielle sent Mary back 3 times with the coffee because, in order, "It's too cold, it's too hot, there's not enough cream." Finally, Mary, who doesn't let anybody push her around, just slapped the coffee pot on the table along with the cream and sugar and told Gabrielle to do it herself because she wasn't going to go back again. This made Mark and me chuckle and Gabrielle steam. 2. While waiting, and probably still stewing from Mary's little comeback with the coffee, Gabrielle decided to accost Stephanie, who had just started, and tell her to get some fresh biscuits. Not ask, tell. Poor Stephanie, who is understandably anxious about her job, does as told, and then Gabrielle made a fuss about the packets of butter not being soft enough, despite Stephanie explaining that all the butter was kept cold for safety reasons. Gabrielle made a snide remark about how Stephanie couldn't wait 5 extra minutes to let the butter soften, which made Stephanie tear up and me about ready to tell Gabrielle to go get with a French chef if food was that important to her. 3. When our meals did arrive, Gabrielle was quiet during the meal, not making comments. I was unsure what was going to happen as a result. Either she really liked it, which I doubted, seeing as I've never seen her compliment anyone's cooking whenever we've gone out, or she was planning some nasty barb, which I feared. When Mary dropped off the bill, Gabrielle took it before Dad could, and she said that she was paying. Because I was sitting next to her, Gabrielle left a big fat 0 in the tip line and left a note about, "It's cute that American chefs think they're good cooks when they've never stepped foot in a real kitchen before. Prove me wrong." Then she closed the little book that the receipt came in, and she hid it so that nobody else could see what she wrote. I was upset when I read that note, and I was about ready to go off on her. I know the chefs and servers who work at this particular diner learn their skills on the job, and if you ask me, they have every right to be as proud of their work as someone who went to culinary school would be. While I'm looking at going to culinary school myself to become a pastry chef, I respect people who've learned by working in kitchens and on the floor because they have firsthand experience. I took out $100 using the ATM at the diner and I gave it to the staff as a tip, along with an apology for her behavior, embarrassed and angry. Fortunately, they didn't hold it against us, except Gabrielle, and told me that Mark and I were always welcome back. I also decided I was going to get back at Gabrielle. There was a benefit to this lockdown. During this time, bored out of our wits and wanting to better our skills, Mark and I have been binge-watching recipe and cooking how-to videos online along with practicing. And while I don't like bragging, I'd say we've become quite good. We know how to smoke our own bacon, cure corned beef, make creamy scrambled eggs, and bake flaky croissants, and that's just a sampling. When we got home, I told Mark my plan, and he was grinning ear to ear. The next day, while Gabrielle and Dad were still asleep, Mark and I got up early and got right to work. We prepared scrambled eggs, home-cured and smoked bacon, biscuits, and a fruit salad. Dad woke up early and smelled the breakfast, waking up Gabrielle by saying that the kids were making breakfast. Dad came downstairs first, and Mark asked him to set the table. Gabrielle came down as we were finishing up, and she sits down, not offering to help. While Gabrielle commented about how it smells just like a restaurant she went to in France and couldn't wait to taste everything, Mark and I served Dad and our plates before putting everything back. Gabrielle looked at us, confused. I looked at her. "Oh, I thought you were going to a French cafe for breakfast," I said. "You did write on that receipt at the diner that you thought it was cute Americans think they're good cooks if they haven't set foot in a real kitchen, and you wanted someone to prove you wrong." Dad looked at Gabrielle, his eyes wide as all the color drained from Gabrielle's face. "You wrote what?" "Well, hop to it," I said, sitting down. "Enjoy your French breakfast with your French chefs." Gabrielle's face reddened before she left. I don't know if she was embarrassed or angry, but we were able to have a nice breakfast without any of Gabrielle's complaining. She did come back after getting breakfast and has been nice and quiet all day. Hopefully she learned her lesson and Dad grows a backbone. Update. Dad and Gabrielle were supposed to stay with us for a few days before I returned to work next week. All four of us got sick with the bug at one point or another during the last 6 months and have remained symptom-free, thank goodness, so no need for us to quarantine once they arrived. They left this morning, but not before they had a vicious argument last night after my brother and I went to bed. And when I say vicious, I mean it was so loud we could hear every word. Thank goodness the neighbors couldn't hear, otherwise they might have called the cops on us. Dad chewed her out on what she had wrote in the receipt and reminded her that she had promised him she'd be on her best behavior. After all, this restaurant was special to not just Mark and me, but Dad as well. Gabrielle defended her actions, saying that it was not what she likes, etc., until she finally blew up and revealed the real reason that she threw that tantrum in the restaurant. It turns out that Dad was planning on surprising Gabrielle on a trip to one of the best restaurants in town to celebrate the anniversary of their first date, which was yesterday. She had found the reservations by accident and thought they were going to it the night they arrived when he was planning on taking her tomorrow to make it a real surprise. So us going to the Greasy Spoon instead of the super nice expensive restaurant really upset her, and she thought he was catering to his kids instead of her. The argument finally ended when Dad took to the couch downstairs, fed up with her BS. So they left this morning. Dad did tell me before they left that he was going to have a serious talk with Gabrielle about her behavior, and that until she learned her manners, he was not going to take her out anymore, even to our place. Hopefully, that will be either the wake-up call to Gabrielle to start behaving or to Dad that he needs to get out. These stories always amaze me how someone's willing to stay in a relationship with a person who acts like that. Well, there's usually at least one reason, if you know what I mean. Am I the jerk for telling my fiancé that if he expects me to contribute 50-50, we have to make some serious lifestyle changes? I'm 26 female, and my fiancé, 26 male, sent me down yesterday and gave me a long talk about how he feels like I don't contribute enough to the household, particularly in the financial sense. I was a bit caught off guard by this, but was willing to hear him out since he wasn't wrong. He makes a lot more than I do, and we've always split bills accordingly, which ends up being about 80% him. I asked what he wanted me to pay now, and he was adamant about it being 50-50. I asked if everything was okay with his job, or if he needed to take fewer hours, and he wouldn't answer me. I honestly wouldn't have gotten upset if there seemed like an actual reason behind it, but he just said he had been thinking about it a lot, over and over, every time I asked what brought him to this conclusion, what was going on, and eventually he just said, "This is how it's gonna be. Take it or leave it. Those exact words, in response to literally everything I said. Full shutdown, no explanations. I told him that was fine, I'll take it, and then asked if he'd made a Zillow account yet, or expected me to. He looked confused and asked why we would need a Zillow account. I explained that there was no way I can afford half the rent on our current place, so we'll probably have to move into a one-bedroom apartment. He got mad and asked why I didn't have savings. I told him that I do, but I'm not paying rent out of my savings because that's a terrible and unsustainable idea. I also began to go over what our new food budget would look like, our new entertainment budget, and that we'd probably have to sell the cars and get one less expensive one because I can't afford half of the payments on an Audi and a Land Rover. Then I explained what date nights would probably have to be reduced to, like Buffalo Wild Wings or something. But I preferred Thursday nights because you get 2 orders of boneless wings for one. Basically, if he wants me to pay half, we're living within my means, not his anymore. He kind of agreed to it, but since then, he's been incredibly angry. He's not saying or doing anything, but it's like he's walking around the house in this cloud of anger. I sent him 6 Zillow listings, all of which he's called uninhabitable for various reasons, some of which I think were valid, others I disagree with. He's now saying that I'm being unfair and manipulative, and that he tried to come to me with a serious concern about our relationship, and I'm making it impossible for him to talk to me and bulldozing over him. Am I the jerk? Can I ask what your salary and his salary are? Like general numbers? A charitable take on his actions could be that he resents not having more money and is trying to inspire you to try to up your salary or change into a more lucrative promotion and career so that you can both be living the high life. He might be imagining how great it would be to have 200% of his income instead of 120%. If that's the case, he's still going about it the wrong way. Personally, I agree with many other comments. Example, someone has insinuated that you're a gold digger and he was expecting you to break up with him, not problem solve. OP, I make around $35,000 a year. He makes around $120,000 a year. It's not like there's some magical be rich suddenly button that I can press. I'm a preschool teacher and I don't have a college degree, and I certainly can't afford a college degree at this point without asking for help or taking out insane loans. Not the jerk. To me, it sounds like something happened with his job, and he's not able to tell you yet for whatever reasons. I would try to have another calm chat about it with him, also showing him how much you'd be able to afford long term. Don't move forward with your plans of getting married until you both agree on your finances. OP, I asked about the job and he wouldn't give me a straight answer. The frustrating part is that I honestly do not mind downsizing, and if I found out tomorrow he lost a job, I'd literally be fine selling what we have and living in a trailer together off just my income. But this feels like some weird power play instead. If you can barely afford your basic living expenses, why are you driving an Audi or a Range? This is a classic example of lifestyle creep. If you barely make enough to contribute to rent, driving a luxury car is shameful. You're not the jerk, you're just spoiled and unrealistic. OP, he gave me the Audi as a birthday present. It was not something I was aware of until it was in the driveway with a big pink bow and confetti, literally like a car commercial. He's always had a bit of a flair for the dramatic. Update. On Tuesday, after I got home from work, I sort of just walked up to him on the elliptical and explained as calmly as I could that I had questions, and if he actually wanted to marry me, he needed to be willing to answer them. I asked if he thought I was a gold digger, yes or no. He said yes. I told him that I wasn't willing to be in a relationship where I have to prove myself by sacrificing any sort of stability, and that led to a bit of a screaming match and eventually a confession. So it turns out we can't afford anything we have right now. We're in serious credit card debt. The cars are both on the verge of being repossessed, and I did not know about any of this. He's been cutting corners on actual necessities, including psychiatric medication. That, in combination with some comments from his family, led him to some pretty dark places. My fiance had a full breakdown and apologized for calling me a gold digger, which was nice to hear, but this whole thing had me pretty shaken up. I went to stay with a friend for a little bit. Yesterday, my fiance and I did in fact go out to Buffalo Wild Wings and got the 2-for-1 boneless. We talked a lot. I'm still riding fiance for now, and I really hope we can work through all of this. We talked about how to sell the cars. We don't particularly have a choice at this point, and about my income, his income, and the sort of life we want to have. If we do stay together, we'll be changing how we live a lot. We need to get out of debt. We need to get on our feet. I know some people are going to say I'm being dumb for not immediately dropping all contact and giving up on the relationship, but I can't do that. I can't look at the guy I love, who went off his meds to try and make a good life for me, and think he's not worth sticking around for, at least to try. I don't know what the future looks like at all anymore, and the wedding is very postponed at the moment. Sorry this wasn't a more fun update. OP, has he come clean to you about what got you guys so deep in this hole? For it to get to the brink that it did, lifts more red flags in the air. Could he be coping with an addiction problem or something else that could destroy your life? You've got to figure this out ASAP. Please don't make any wedding plans. This is not the man you wanted to marry. OP, he has. It's not gambling or anything, like a lot of people are saying. It's an addiction to nice things. He's got a lot of financial hang-ups and comes from a family that replaced love with money. So he got it in his head that the only way to show love was to provide a very fancy sort of lifestyle, which was way over budget for us. It's going to be a hard pill to swallow, cutting back on everything, but it's what has to happen. I didn't write everything out in this post, but we did go over how the debt got this bad, and I'm currently aware of pretty much everything. There are some accounts I still need to look at this weekend, but for the most part, it's all above board at this point. We're definitely looking at the relationship, and I'm going to be taking a much more active role in life planning if we do continue. The wedding is on pause for an unknown amount of time. I'm already looking into places I can afford and will probably end up renting a trailer. And no, I'm not lying for him. I told him point blank that hiding this stuff is what got us into this mess, and he's not going to be able to keep it under wraps if he wants to stay with me. We need to be upfront about our financial situation, whether he's embarrassed or not. I think that, with some hard work, we'll both end up in a better position. We need to get out of debt, and I'm taking the reins for a bit since he's never lived frugally before. But if all goes well, we'll get through this. I don't plan to leave if he sticks to what we're talking about and actually takes steps forward. I love this man, and I'll fight for what we have. If he won't fix things, won't listen, and continues to disrespect me, I'm gone. But I genuinely believe we will get through this. I know he can do better, and I believe that he wants to. Now he has to prove it. Don't gloss over the comments from his family. If you marry him, you're marrying them too. If they're generally toxic to his mental health, you need to talk about whether no contact is necessary. If not, he has some serious repair work to do to fix the impression they have of you, or has to take to the job of shielding you from their BS. OP, his family doesn't like me for a number of reasons. They don't like that I don't have a college degree. They don't like that I grew up low income or went to public school, and they don't approve at all of the fact that I'm religious. His mother in particular has called me a hick, and several other things I don't want to put here. Up until this point though, he's been pretty good about defending me. Am I the jerk for changing my mind about having kids at 57 and leaving my girlfriend because of it? I just turned 57 in early August, and my ex-girlfriend just turned 55 a few days ago. We were together for 25 years before I called it quits 2 weeks ago. When my ex and I got together, she was a self-described open-minded person who, unlike other women I dated, did not start pulling my arm on the marriage issue after we passed the 1-year mark. She had a mom who grew up in Sweden where couples would live together, have kids, but never get married. She was always on the fence about having kids. However, I did not want to have any because at the time I was thinking about how much I was willing to sacrifice to start a business and how I'd resent them for getting in the way of that. We argued over this, went to counseling over this. Our arguments were interrupted by the fact that my startup costs led us to have to sell plasma in order to survive. Then it was like we woke up one day and my girlfriend was 39 and I was 41, and the money finally started coming in. I felt like my girlfriend did not want to rock the boat at that point, and we just wanted to enjoy the money. We traveled the world. She quit her job to volunteer for a charity. I got involved in causes too. However, I'm in my late 50s now, and I think at the back of my mind it never registered that the door to having biological kids was closed forever. But it hit home when my girlfriend said, "Well, that's the end of the phantom pregnancies for me," when she found out that she was menopausal at 53. Since then, I've been in an internal crisis because everything about my life has gotten old. My life felt empty. I had worked through the emotional issues that prevented me from wanting kids, and now I desperately wanted a family. My doctor told me I wouldn't be the first older father. What is worse is that a lot of my once divorced friends, who are also in their 50s, have easily had healthy and happy kids, and finally the time and money to devote to them. I felt I was in a place where I appreciated kids, could provide for them, and would never take the mom of my kids for granted, always seeing her as beautiful. unlike guys in their 30s. I became more depressed and finally realized that if I wanted to do something about my desire to have kids, to see little quirks of myself reflected in my kids in a way that can only be described by biology, I needed to act now. So I set my then girlfriend down and said that this is what I was struggling with. She tried to shame me by saying this was me having a midlife crisis and that I've used up her time and I owe her, even calling me narcissistic for not wanting to adopt when nearly all parents try for biological kids before adopting. I'm letting her stay in my vacation house for a month so she can find her own place. The whole time she's been telling everybody I'm crazy and would wake up. Am I the jerk for changing my mind when my girlfriend is acting like I don't get to change my mind? You're the jerk. Yes, obviously, you're a giant jerk. You're the jerk. Just to be clear, with what you just pulled, you are clearly not father material. You would abandon your partner of 25 years to pursue a dream of self-sacrificing fatherhood? What the heck? Are you an idiot also? You're leaving your girlfriend of 25 years because you're changing your mind at almost 60 about having kids and she finally hit menopause. Is this correct? I just want to make sure I'm understanding this right. You're the jerk. Also, big assumption that a woman who can have kids would even want to have them with you. I don't think finding someone and starting a relationship and starting planning for kids is going to be as easy as you think. By the way, you're the jerk and she deserves better. Am I the jerk for leaving my own wedding because my husband embarrassed me? I, female 27, and my husband, male 29, have been together for 3 years. In those 3 years, I have never known him to be selfish. Occasionally immature, yes, but even that was rare. These problems arose when those stupid cake smashing videos got popular and my husband thought they were hilarious. I've never thought they were funny and he knows that, yet he always is showing me the videos of those poor wives getting the happiest day of their lives ruined by their partner for some cheap laughs. He also knows I have a history with cake smashing. My family does the cake smashing thing too. I remember it was my 17th birthday and I pleaded with my mom not to do it. She promised and I trusted her. I had my hair and makeup done. They looked nice. And right as I blew out my candles, my mom pushed my head into the cake and one of the decorations on the cake ended up cutting my forehead. My birthday was ruined and after that I wouldn't come out of my room. My mom still calls me a brat for that. I told him if he ever did something like that to me, I'd leave him. He started laughing, but I was being serious, though he really was not taking me seriously. Now skip to a few days ago when my wedding happened. Everything was perfect. I was happy. He was happy. I was excited for our new lives as newlyweds. I felt like a princess in my poofy white dress and done-up hair with perfect makeup. All very expensive things I would like to mention. We get to the cake cutting part, and as I turn to him, he scoops up a huge chunk of our wedding cake and smashes it all over my face. Everything just seemed to go in slow motion for a few moments. He's just laughing at me and then says, "You should see your face," and continues to laugh. Other people in the crowd, mostly my family, are also laughing at me. Then I just start walking away. He realizes that I'm leaving and tries to catch up with me and says I'm being extra. I push him away and I order an Uber. As I got outside, most of the crowd is following me, telling me to come back. I get into the Uber and drive away. I drove to our apartment and packed most of my things and went to stay at a hotel. I'm currently staying at a friend's house. My family and his family have been blowing up my phone for days, saying I'm being childish and my husband is a good man and it was just a joke. My husband has been calling me off the hook, telling me to please come back home and that he wants to talk, that he's sorry and didn't think I'd get that emotional. This was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives and he embarrassed me in front of everyone for some prank that he knew I hated. Not only that, he ruined a $500 cake. He ruined my makeup, my hair, and the top of my dress. The cake got all over. Though I still do love him, and I'm wondering if I really was too hard on him. That seemed to be everyone else's opinion. So, am I the jerk? He apparently didn't plan this, and it happened fairly quick, so the only person who is recording that I know of was the person I paid to do it. I already messaged him to not give those recordings to anyone. I don't need that type of attention, God forbid it got out. Plus, everyone was too busy laughing. I guess maybe he thought he could change my mind. This is the only reasoning I can think of because that's the same thing that went through my mind. I don't even know if I will get back with him. He's acting as if smashing cake in my face was funny and that I was just being emotional. Update. I decided to speak to him bright and early this morning. I'm leaving him. Some of you might be happy about that, and some of you might not be. I decided to call him and get his reasoning for what he did. He told me he just thought it was a funny prank, and that if it was at the wedding on a happy day, that he could change my mind. Plus, since it was a tradition in my family that I wasn't following, he thought he could get points with my family. Then told me he's sorry that I took it as a disrespect. I told him he shouldn't be saying that he's sorry I took it that way. He should be apologizing for hurting me. Where is the "I'm sorry"? I told him he hasn't apologized with accountability once. All his apologies have been backhanded. I also reminded him that I didn't have a good relationship with most of my family, nor my mother, who he forced me to invite. I told him he knew I was already the black sheep of my family, and how I had been treated by my mother for years really messed with me, and he knew that. Then he says this, "Why should I have to apologize because you can't take a joke?" I blew up and told him, "Are you serious? If it was me who hurt you to this degree, the first thing I'd do is apologize, while you can't even force yourself to be decent for a few seconds and just apologize to me." I also told him that he was trying to get in good with my family, who have also humiliated me, and that's something that's unforgivable. Marriage means you stick by me, yet you showed you obviously don't. It's not about you ruining my dress or my hair or even the cake. It's about how you knew how I felt about this and the problems that I had connected to it, and you didn't care. He then tried doubling down and saying it wasn't his fault for not apologizing because my family was telling him how dramatic I was being and how I was hurting them by leaving the wedding for a joke. He said he loves me and he doesn't want to break up over this nonsense and that I should just come back home. I told him I wasn't coming home, and it wasn't even about the cake anymore. It's because I can't be with a man who won't apologize when he's wrong and who gaslights their significant other into receiving the blame. He started going off at this point, but about after a minute of hearing him scream at me, I hung up. I guess he started telling my family, because within half an hour, my phone was blowing up again. The worst ones had to be from my mother and his sister. My mother was telling me I'm going to end up alone because I can't take a joke, or I'll never be able to keep a man with my attitude, even saying that my clock is running out fast, and when it does, no one will want to be with me and I'll be alone. His sister was telling me that I'm a disgusting jerk for hurting her brother and wasting his time, that she wishes that he would have broken up with me 2 years ago when he first wanted to. So now I know that he wanted to break up with me. What I also know is that he was cheating on me for 6 months with his ex who wanted him back, but then she dropped him because he stayed with me. The thing is, I had a good relationship with his sister, and she knew he was cheating on me. I guess she put everything out on the table since I was leaving anyway. I blocked most of my family, and I blocked all of his family. I also blocked him, and I'm getting the annulment. My friend said I could stay with her for a few months till I get back on my feet. I told her I really appreciate it. So yeah, that's the end. I'm crying while typing this. I wasted 3 years on a man who never really cared about me. I've lost what little relationship I had with my family, and now I only have a few friends that I've been blessed with. I'm going to have to pick up the rest of my stuff. I also told him before I blocked him, if he broke anything of mine, I would take it to court. Thank you for the kind words and encouragement. I'm going to go to sleep now since I haven't done so in 24 hours. Update 2. I haven't gotten my stuff back from him yet. I just haven't had the energy because I'm still extremely upset. The comments kind of made me think that there were probably a lot of red flags and I was just used to it, so the bare minimum was enough for me. After speaking about it with my friend, she said that he definitely had a lot of red flags, and she even told me I should stay far away from dating until I get some serious help because I was obviously not seeing the red flags right in front of me. I'm not going to go into it, but sometimes I'd have to cook second dinners for my ex because he didn't like everything I made. His mom apparently didn't get him used to vegetables, so he won't eat them, or making fun of my cramps. That's some of what I was referring to when I said immature. Someone asked me if I was sure that he had cheated on me. No, I'm not sure. At the moment, it just felt like it made sense because of how horrible he was being, though they made a good point. The sister could have just been trying to kick me when I was down since I was leaving anyway. I have no evidence, and I probably will never have evidence. I unblocked him just to tell him I was going to come over in a few days to get my stuff, and if he could just not be there and that I'd leave my keys. He said fine, and that was it. So he won't be there when I go get the rest of my belongings. I'll also bring a friend with me in case he does do something. I'm still not speaking to my family, and I think I'm just going to go no contact like people suggested. When I get my financials in order, I think I'll try therapy and wait a few years before attempting to date again. I also kept getting this question: how did the Uber come so quick? The wedding venue was in a city, in a building, and Uber took 30 seconds to order and 3 minutes to get there. I'm okay though. I feel lonely and depressed, but I have my friends supporting me, so I'm not that alone. I'll be okay and I'll get myself out of this hole. I realize this post is a bit of doom and gloom. And when I go back, I'll bring the cops with me if you guys think I should. My wife is demanding to quit her job and be a stay-at-home wife. I'm 28, male, and my wife, who's 31, has recently started to express interest in being a stay-at-home wife to prep for being a stay-at-home mom. We don't have kids and haven't been trying, and before getting married, we talked about kids and work-home arrangement, and we agreed that we'd both work prior to and once we had kids, and agreed that we'd take turns with the stay-at-home portion for the first year or two after potential kids were born, then both go back to work. Now she wants to do away with that and wants to be a stay-at-home wife until we have kids and then be a stay-at-home mom. I don't want that. I never wanted that, and I made that clear from the start when we got serious. I enjoy my job a lot, but my salary can't sustain a family, and I don't want to go back to school and change careers like she wants me to make it happen. I don't want to take up a second job either, knowing I'd still be doing half the housework and childcare. Not that that's a bad thing. Whereas both my mom and her parents are local, she'd have plenty of help during the day and be able to get downtime. We had dinner at my mother's a couple of days ago with my sister and her kids. While we were there, my wife goes, "Your son's being mean. He won't let me be a stay-at-home mom." First, my family took this as she's pregnant and they got excited, so I had to tell them that she wasn't yet. She just wants to be a stay-at-home wife. It turned into this 3-on-1 conversation about how I should let her stay home if that's what she really wants, and I should be taking care of her and finding a way to make this happen for her. Finally, I go, "Would you two help her with the house whenever she needs it?" "Of course, that's what family is for. Especially when you start having kids, we'll help." "Cool. Keep that same energy and help me pay all of our bills and every other expense to upkeep our current quality of life if you feel so strongly she should get to stay home." They did not like that and told me I was being overdramatic. My mom called me stubborn and told me to find corners to cut to afford everything on my salary and drop things like streaming services, some of my hobbies, go from 2 cars to 1, etc. We left and my wife wasn't too happy on the way home. She says I was out of line for saying that to my mom and sister, especially since she thinks I was serious. Was I the jerk for telling my mom and sister to pay our bills if they wanted me to go along with it? Also, please stop with the vasectomy messages. They aren't 100% reversible. Success rates go down each year post-procedure, and I do want kids someday. I am mindful that a baby trap is always possible. Edit 2. Holy wow, this blew up. Thanks everyone for all of your responses. I do know to be careful of oopsie babies right now. For those of you insisting I reconsider, no. Look, I'm glad that stay at home and one income works for you all and you enjoy it, but it's not for me. I'm well aware one income means being financially tight, but it's more than that. I don't want the stress of making sure I'm making enough money on my own with 2 jobs and also doing my part in the house and being a parent. I'd much rather get to spend time with my kids when I have them, not be a stranger that falls asleep at dinner and spends a bit of time like my father was. Since this post was more about my mom and sister, I know all about the issues my wife is presenting at the moment and my options. I'm going to tell them to lay off. Either they do, or I just drop contact with them, but I won't be giving them an ultimatum about it. Not the jerk, because you didn't bring it up to them, your wife did. She was being manipulative and you called her out on it. Be careful, I could see an "oops, we're pregnant, now I have to stay home" moment coming. This is exactly what happened with my brother and his now ex-wife. She loved spending but didn't like working, and even though they had agreed not to have kids for a while, until both of their careers stabilized, she was suddenly, accidentally pregnant. We tried to tell him, but he wouldn't believe it at first. Fast forward a few months, she's off work because the pregnancy was too hard for her to keep working. It might have been, I don't know for certain, but I find it highly suspicious that she managed to have a pregnancy that was simultaneously so horrible she couldn't work, but easy enough that she could travel around the country. My brother was stressed, working overtime in a job he hated, buying the most expensive stuff for the baby because she wanted it, and thousands of dollars in debt. Eventually, he came back to us and told us that she had indeed gotten pregnant on purpose, and that was the end of their marriage. Not the jerk, and make sure all your bases are covered, OP. Your wife has already tried manipulating your family to get her way. I wouldn't be surprised if the accidental pregnancy is next. Not the jerk. I've been here, and the divorce will be horrible once you have kids. Get out now. She's shown her true colors. This is the warning sign. Not the jerk, but this sounds like a huge marinara flag. Anyone who is so entitled and honestly narcissistic before kids is only going to get worse after. Let's be real here. She wants to stay home, not work, still have you be responsible for half the housework, and is pressuring you to change careers away from something you enjoy to be able to afford her a responsibility-free lifestyle. And on top of that, she tried to get your family involved. This reeks of childish entitlement. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Considering you don't have kids yet, this is the perfect opportunity to bounce. Or you could end up being tied to her for the rest of your life. The choice is yours. Am I the jerk for saying no to picking up my son's half-sister from school? I'm a single mom of 2 boys, ages 11 and 10. Their father and I divorced 5 years ago after I learned he was cheating on me. He got her pregnant either right before he told me, and that was why he confessed, or right after. But our divorce was not an easy one. He wanted to stay friends, and I could not look at him after what he did. He and I were together for over 13 years. He was also a friend before he was my boyfriend and husband, and to have him betray me like that and treat me as he had was awful. He married his affair partner. They had a daughter within months of our separation, followed by a son after the divorce and their marriage. Last year, they discovered that his wife had cancer. What followed was a lot of fighting between the two of us again. He wanted me to help him and his wife out. He said their kids, who are currently 5 and 3, needed family beyond just him and his wife. His own family disowned him for our divorce. They were extremely religious, and she has no family. I told him it would be over my dead body I would help him. He argued that it was for the kids, and if not for his kids with her, then for our boys, who could see their family heal and be one. I told him he stopped any chance of that happening when he cheated on me. What I did not expect was for him to tell his daughter's school to call me when she got sick. He was at work at the time and couldn't leave apparently because he had already missed a lot of work due to his wife, and she was home recovering from chemo. I got the call, was asked if I would pick her up, and I said no. Several hours later, he went off on me on the phone for leaving his sick kid at school when I knew they had nobody. This is when he told me how he couldn't leave and how his wife was resting. I told him the babysitter for his son should have been called over me. He told me he was in daycare and I should be ashamed because she was a sick kid who's going through a lot and I could have helped. He told me he hoped our sons were going to be ashamed of me. They aren't, and I argued back with him over the phone at the time. But I guess part of me does feel bad for the kid. My sons also sensed an atmosphere while they were with their dad after the incident when they talked about me, and I hate that for them. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. He has the nerve to try to manipulate you after cheating? Those aren't your kids and not your problem. I also feel bad for the girl, but it's his mess to solve. Give an inch, he'll take a mile. Say no now to prevent future problems. OP. That's my concern. I do not want to be part of these 2 kids' lives in any big way, and if I say yes to one thing, then it gets harder to say no again, and that establishes more of a relationship than I ever want with them. Your ex is trying to use your basic decency to manipulate you. No responsible parent puts down an emergency contact without getting confirmation by the contact. This is all on him. As sad and unfortunate a situation as this is for his kids, you have the right to refuse to be their carer. He put his daughter in this position, not you. He is to blame for any discomfort she may have experienced, not the jerk. Not the jerk. What kind of fool lists his ex-wife as an emergency contact for his affair kid? The audacity of him to get mad at you. The only kids of his you need to care for are the ones you share with him. Do not let him tell you otherwise. Too bad he tanked his own life, but that's not your problem at all. If he can't handle the situation he got himself into, he needs to figure out a way to get himself through it. You're not responsible for his mistakes. While it's unfortunate with his wife, you're still not obligated to help him at all with anything except as related to your own kids. He can apologize and make amends with his family, or go out and make friends and get support that way. It's not your job. You very clearly told him no. He put you on the list anyway, and then screamed at you when you didn't comply with his assignment? Sign your kids up for some counseling, because this guy is a jerk when he does not get what he wants, and they should not have to deal with their father's BS behavior. He cheats, but still wants to be friends after betraying you? His family disowns him, and he demands that you step up because his kids need family. Then he wants you to do it so his boys can see their family heal and become one. He's the one that caused it to break. Still won't comply with his demands, he'll sign you up with the school without your knowledge or consent, then try to manipulate you with guilt, saying your kids will be ashamed. Hello? Does this man have not one friend or neighbor that could pick up a kid from school and drop her off at home? Zero? That's telling. Sounds like people that he can't manipulate with guilt don't hang out with him and don't accept his assignments. Were you also supposed to watch his kid the rest of the day since his wife is resting? Take care of his sick kid and infect yours too? Maybe you should also watch his kid instead of daycare, clean his house, make dinner, and drive her to chemo. His shoes might need to be shined too. You are allowed to say no. You should send a letter, return receipt to the school that says you aren't that kid's emergency contact and their parent put you on the list without your permission. Copy it to your divorce lawyer and your ex. If you give in now, his demands will only increase. He needs to find solutions to his problems that are not volunteering you, not the jerk. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.